Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
Covering both sides of the big issues with the analysis you trust on News Radio 1040 WHO.
A lot of you stream me on your office computer or on that smart device, and I was fascinated about this new survey that says that 1 in 5 Americans at this point admit at their job they're just doing the bare minimum. And that is a topic from a friend, Joel Patterson. Joel is, he heads up the Vested Group, which is a firm that's always on the best places to work list. And I just love talking these issues over with Joel. Joel, welcome back to Iowa Radio. Good morning.
Good morning, Jeff. How you doing?
Good. So, Joel, what do you think is going on? I mean, it just seems, I got to be honest with you, Americans are famed for our productivity. And now we're seeing a survey that says 1 in 5 Americans admit they're just doing the bare minimum. What do you think's happening?
Well, I think it's just more of the same, and that means lots of change every day. Productivity was one of the things early in the pandemic that everybody pointed at and said, hey, this is working. We're going to change the world forever. And what I think we're seeing finally is that it's not all rainbows and unicorns when it comes to this stuff. There is a downside to it, and a lot of it is engagement and employees that aren't necessarily motivated for whatever reason. I'm not criticizing them, or it could be the employer's fault. But we're seeing that there's a lot of people that have gotten to the point now where they're saying, hey, I don't really want to do all that. And I don't, it's, the quiet quitting piece where they're not willing to do anything more than 40, but really trying to do as little as humanly possible. And it's become even more incumbent upon the employers. You got to find ways to keep your people engaged, to know what they're doing, not looking over their shoulder. We don't want to, we're not trying to create that in your culture, but you've got to be able to know, hey, how are they doing? How is their productivity? Are they engaged with what they've got going on every day? Are they actually talking to their colleagues and having some of that social interaction? And I think what's bearing out now is that there's not a lot of that going on in some places. And so people are just saying, you know what? I don't really care. I'm just going to do as little as possible.
Well, and Joel, so it's so interesting. So you and I have talked now for a couple of years about working from home, and certainly the pandemic sped that process up. But that there are people out there that they're at home and, oh, here comes the dog, or, oh, man, I'm really behind on the laundry. And I don't know if for everyone this thing is working as far as productivity, because there are a lot of distractions at home, aren't there?
Oh, I mean, look, I own my own business, so if anybody's going to be motivated, it's got to be me, right? And when I'm home, I do go to the office most days, but when I am home, especially if it's for a couple of days in a row, I know what my natural tendencies are.
Yeah.
And it is those distractions, and you just get it's not because you're a bad person, it just happens. And I think recognizing that people will go through that is important to this overall process, because I think some people think they're just staring at the computer screen for 8 hours straight, and that's just not happening. There's got to be other ways to keep people motivated and engaged. But I think what we're ultimately going to see is a little bit of a pullback finally in that this hybrid thing and what it means, and getting more intentional about the timing and how you get people together, because that lack of social interaction is really impacting us in a negative way.
Let's talk about that, Joel. You've brought it up a couple of times now, so I want to zero in on that. Why is the lack of social interaction causing a decrease in productivity?
So it's not, when I say social, it's not just talking about the football game, what your weekend was like. It's that interpersonal stuff. It's getting into a room and walking in there and having a problem to solve, and being in there with a bunch of smart people and figuring out that problem together. That they call it bursting, but that communication back and forth when those ideas are just popping around all over the place, that's what's missing. You can't do that over a screen. It doesn't mean you have to be in the office every day to be able to do that, but there's got to be time set aside for innovation, for ideation, for just things that you don't do that are task-oriented, right? This is bigger thinking activities, and sometimes that's just checking in with somebody and developing a relationship that you can lean on later. It's just those interpersonal sidebar meetings, water cooler talk, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
It's so important to businesses that we're missing.
So, Joel, obviously this is the time of year when a lot of people will be asking you about what you think the trend is for 2023. Do you think there'll be a pullback in the country in the work from home mentality? I noticed you used the word hybrid earlier, and it seems to me like what that would mean is hybrid means you're in the office more, not 100% of the time, but more. What do you think is coming?
Yeah, I think there's got to be some structure around it. I do think that we'll get more people back into the office. We're never going back to where we were. But even if you know that I've got to be there 2 or 3 days a week, and you have some definition around what that means, I think flexibility can't equal free-for-all. And I think it's kind of gotten to that point. So if they can just come up with some standards, get people together, I think most people are going to understand that we've got to swing back in that direction a little bit because we went so far in the other way. Let's find a new center, and kind of deal with what's going on in the business, but really getting people back to working together, being colleagues and coworkers like we know they can be, which really equates to more productivity overall.
Yeah. He is the head of the Vested Group. As he said, he owns his own company, and his firm is always on the lists of best places to work. Joel Patterson. Joel, thanks for chewing this over with me.